There will be spoilers ahead. Lots of spoilers, so be careful, won't you?
Hiya! Welcome to Max Mike Movies Diner. My special today is I Can't Believe You Haven't Seen That Part 3. What's yours? You bet, hon. Mike, 2 cackle fruit on a raft and burn the British. You want a cup of mud? Mike, add a hot blonde with sand. How about you, Pally? Mike, give me a heart attack on a rack and a side of frog sticks. And give it wings. Next. Mike, bloodhound in the hay and easy on the Bronx vanilla. How about you? Mike, burn one, take it through the garden and pin a rose on it. And draw one in the dock. Great. Mike, give me an eldritch horror from beyond time and space with extra yum-yum. What better way to introduce Barry Levinson's 1982 opus Diner, starring a bunch of, at the time, nobodies, many of whom went on to become somebodies. And speaking of nobodies, I'm your host, Max Whistleberries Levine, and over there, chomping down a Noah's boy with Murphy carrying a wreath, is Mike, pair of drawers, loose. Pass the sweet Alice, Mike.
You have to call me extra yum-yum from now on.
Yum-yum is old diner slang for sugar.
Is it really?
Everything I said except for the eldritch horror is actual old diner slang.
Really?
Yep.
The only one I knew was Adam and Eve on a raft and Wreck-'em.
Yep. Cackle fruit is eggs on a raft, and if you burn the British, that's a English muffin.
Oh. Huh.
Yep. There's a ton
I totally
of them.
thought you made it all up.
Noah's boy with the Murphy carrying a wreath is ham and potatoes with cabbage.
Sure it is.
Yeah,
because why wouldn't you say ham and potatoes with cabbage?
Noah's boy, that's a reference to Noah in the Bible. Noah's youngest son's name is Ham.
Really?
So Noah, just the line, Noah's boy is a slice of ham.
Wait a sec. If I remember correctly, that would be Old Testament.
Yes.
The Jewish tracts of the Bible.
Yes, that's the Jew Bible.
And he named his son Ham.
Yes, he did.
Which he can't have. Okay.
Yeah, that's why Ham's kind of the jerk, I assume.
Anyway, sorry to get us totally sidetracked, but you still have to call me extra yum-yum.
I was going to call you Sweet Alice.
Oh.
That's milk.
Oh.
Yep.
Nope, don't get
also called baby juice, moo juice, or cow juice.
Oh, moo juice, I understand.
Moo juice! Yes. Moo juice! 2 eggies!
That's a deeper. But at least it's a current deeper.
It is. But before we dig into this movie and the delicious side of movie we have with the movie, we have our poll question.
Poll question.
Last week we wanted to know what celebrity cameo in a film just threw you out of the story. And we got answers. Brian Mundo said, while I liked it, having Stan Lee in the Marvel movies always threw me just a bit. Even just in the back of my mind. I was always looking for him, and it was a bit distracting. Yeah, I actually can see that. It's funny, I felt that way about, like, Alfred Hitchcock.
Yeah,
when you know he's going to be in it, you start watching. The smart thing he did is he's always in, like, the first scene or two. So it's over quickly before you've gotten drawn in too much.
Yeah, and here's the thing. I don't know how well that was known at the time. Like, it later became a thing. It's like, hey, did you know Alfred? Because he's often just like a guy getting on a bus. He's not...
Yep.
Sometimes he's front and center, but sometimes he's not. He just literally walks by or something. So I don't know if that was true at the time, but it certainly is now. You play hunt and seek for Alfred Hitchcock. Dave
says, pretty much none. If they're subtle, I miss them. If they're blatant, I usually think, I wonder who that is.
Yeah,
okay.
Dave doesn't recognize famous people that well. That's what he said.
True. And after a long absence of foiling my evil schemes, Diggsy O'Brien returns.
Good.
I thought I dealt with you, O'Brien.
Dealt with him in that you didn't answer any of his poll question answers, only I did.
Yes, exactly. I was planning to ignore him
to
death.
I'm sure he appreciates that.
For years, it has been and probably always will be John Wayne in The Greatest Story Ever Told. Oh, God, 1965. Yep. Playing a centurion from the Roman province of Texas Maximus. Looking up at a crucified Jesus and drawling, "Truly, this man was the Son of God." I like the story that apparently the director said to it, the only directing he gave him was, "Duke, could you put a little more, awe into the line?" And Wayne looked at him for a minute, looked up and goes, "Aw, that man truly was the Son of God."
As soon as you said that, it's like, I know what he did. Oh, dear God, I know what he did.
That apparently is true.
Wow.
It's distantly followed. No, there's more.
Oh, there's more.
It's distantly followed by a pre-scandal Lance Armstrong in Dodgeball. Oh, God, I saw that.
Oh, I didn't.
Giving Vince Vaughn a lesson in either ethics or crappy, I can't say what he wrote, acting.
Oh.
And by Quentin Tarantino playing the Make-A-Wish version of Crocodile Dundee in pre-Civil War America in Django Unchained. Oh, God, I forgot that too.
Okay.
But neither comes close to the Duke about to sign Jesus up for an appearance at the local gun show.
Oh, thank you, Degsy. We have missed you. Wow. I have not seen that film, but the idea, just Greatest Story Ever Told and John Wayne, those are two things that do not belong in the same sentence.
Ave Caesar.
I mean, it could have been worse. It could have been Tony Curtis.
Oh, God.
Yonder lies the cross of the Father, the Son of the Father, our Savior. Okay. Bernie.
And making a cameo appearance from the frozen north in full penguin mufti.
Quack, quack,
we
quack,
have
quack,
Vince
quack, 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 quack.
Saying, Grand Moff Tarkin and Princess Leia in Rogue One.
Oh.
They were both dead, so no matter how well or obvious the CGI was, their appearance was going to be distracting. Obviously, celebrity placement in a film is always distracting, sometimes to comic effect, but mostly it's a bad idea, in my opinion. Oh, and Sting in Dune with his winged jockstrap.
All I see isn't Atreides I want to kill.
I want to kill. I will kill him.
Real quick, I just happened yesterday to see a little short video on YouTube with Patrick Stewart, and they were asking him about how it was to work with Sting on Dune, and he proceeded to talk about all the other actors. It's like, I got to work with Max von Sydow. He's one of my heroes, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, okay, I'm getting to it. Sting, basically, he showed up. I had no idea who he was. I, at one point, was sitting down next to him, and I said, so I understand you're a musician. He says, yes. What do you play? The bass. I've always wondered how hard it is to carry that big thing around all the time. And he's like, no, I play the bass guitar. Oh, that's a lovely instrument. Are you a soloist? He's like, no, I play in a band. Oh, really? And what is the band? The Police. Oh, you play in a police band. Like, literally had no idea who
Sir
Sting
Patrick.
was. I know. It was really funny. Sorry to just throw that in, but
That's okay. But that's pretty much all we have this week. What about you, Mike? What's a celebrity cameo that just took you right out of the show?
I'm going to go with Brian Mundo, and that is with Stan Lee, because two things. One, it really just says, hey, here's the guy who wrote the comic on which this is based, so you don't even try to think it's real now. Also because Stan Lee is, let's face it, kind of terrible. I like Strepparella. But also, if you know any of the history of Marvel Comics, Stan Lee is kind of a terrible person. Sorry to burst that bubble, but he's the only name we know. You may have heard of Jack Kirby, and that certainly wasn't because of Stan Lee. But basically, he took all the credit and made sure that people like Jack Kirby had no retirement, had no life insurance, none of that, or health insurance, none of that stuff, which Stan did negotiate for himself. So, I'm not a fan of him. So I'm going to go with Stan Lee. It brings the whole movie to a halt. How about you?
Yeah. Mine is Stan Lee, but not in one of the Marvel movies. It's in Mallrats.
Oh, I only saw it once.
Yeah, he shows up outside a comic book store where he's supposed to be making an appearance, and it's just kind of jarring. It was much better to have him in the background, just the idea that he was there. The other one for me and this is a little more obscure, is in a British comedy I wanted to love because everyone is in it. It's called Yellowbeard.
Oh, yeah. I saw that in the theater.
And it's not that good. But at one point, David Bowie shows up as a sailor, just in one scene, and I was like, hey, who is that? Then they get in a little closer, and you see the two colored eyes.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, what's David Bowie doing here?
Well, it's like Glenn Close playing
Eric Idle.
Well, it's like Glenn Close playing a pirate in Hook. You don't.
Well, at least there, unless you were told, I didn't recognize her until I read about it later.
She had a beard.
Yeah, she was done up as a guy.
Yeah.
Or it's like, there are some that work, like Peter Jackson inserting himself into Lord of the Rings, which once again, unless someone tells you, you don't know it's him.
Well, I think it's when he does it in The Hobbit, where he literally lurches onto the screen and burps. Like, okay.
Yeah, probably.
Because I think it's when they get to Lake Town.
In the original trilogy, he's just like, he's some guy in Bree.
Yeah.
And he's, I think, one of the Rohirrim chuck tossing a spear at somebody.
Yeah, which you can't tell, which is fine.
Yeah, you have no idea. And he's on screen for like a half second.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of that sort of thing. We talked about Easter eggs a while back. I'm not a fan of them. Anything that might take you out of the story, I don't see the point in it. It's working against the film. So, yeah. Weird cameos is another one. So, but we do thank you for these very clever responses. Yeah, and we would like some more of them. A lot more, please. Not seeing that many this week. Yeah. I'd like to know, what do you think is the most overused specific location in movies? Coffee shop, front seat of a car, public restroom. Oh, I already know this one. It's the Lambda Zone. Yeah, that's right. Where everyone meets up. Yep. Let's meet up at the Lambda Zone. Mm-hmm. And we'll tell you how to answer at the end of the episode, because obviously some of you don't know. Really? Oh, I see. The ones you're thinking. No, they just didn't answer this week. That's all. Nope. They didn't like my question, which is fine. Yes, it's because they don't like you as a person. Well, I already know that. Yeah. Overused location. Yeah, I already know that specific answer. Location. Oh, it's very specific. Yep. But now, things. The facts. Budget. $5 million. Ooh. Which, by the way, was brought in $500,000 under budget. The budget was $5.5 million. Barry Levinson brought the movie in on time at $500,000 under budget. Made over $14 million. You know why it's probably under budget? They filmed it in Baltimore. Yes, they did, and they filmed it with a whole lot of people who couldn't ask for a lot of money. Yep. Barry Levinson, in case you don't know, is known for directing such little things as Bugsy, Rain Man, and Wag the Dog. See our entire episode on Wag the Dog. And toys. Mm-hmm. Kevin Bacon had just decided not to renew his contract with the soap opera Guiding Light, and the audition for the film was all he had on the horizon. Aw. But on the day he was scheduled for a screen test, he was really sick. He had the flu and a fever of 104. He was originally supposed to read for the part of Boogie or Billy, but the illness gave him just the right kind of spaced out, not all there aspects of the character, as he put it himself, to get the role of Fenwick. Good call. Kevin Bacon has also said he was never very good at improvising like a bunch of the other actors, so he would just sit and listen and grin, which turned out to be right for the character, who he considered a reactive sort of character, someone who's kind of on the outskirts. Well, we'll get back to the ad-libbing. Oh boy, will we get back to that. Oh yeah. All the scenes in the diner were filmed last, after the cast got to know each other. The dialogue in these scenes is a combination of scripted and improv. Levinson brought all these guys in like a week ahead of shooting and just told them to go hang out. So they would get to know each other and sort of work up some chemistry. Mostly what they ended up doing was going out and trying to pick up women. I mean, are you surprised? These were a bunch of young Hollywood kids, yeah. Yeah. Barry Levinson claims that the infamous football quiz that Eddie forces his fiancée to pass is based on something that one of his male cousins did in real life. And I'm sure they're still married. Uh-huh. Happily. Yeah. The big source of competition among the actors came about when they're called upon to improvise, a skill in which they each had sort of different levels of ability.
Kevin Bacon was the least adept at it. Tim Daly said it was hardest to top Paul Reiser's improv dexterity because, quote, he's the fastest, sharpest guy alive.
And we'll get back to Paul Reiser.
Yep. MGM was kind of reluctant to release the film because they thought it would be a commercial flop. But when they found out that the critic Pauline Kael, see her appearance in Willow, had written a glowing review in the New Yorker, they immediately released it.
Yeah, that was a little jab.
MGM was kind of disappointed. They were expecting the movie to be kind of like Porky's.
Oh.
They didn't rave about the picture. They didn't want to release it. They wanted to shelve it.
Wow.
They didn't support it, didn't make it a priority, and didn't know what to do with it, and end up being nominated for Best Original Screenplay.
Wow, not like Porky's. That's...
No, strangely. Now, a lot of people have speculated about which of the characters actually represented Barry Levinson. According to Levinson, none of them.
Oh.
Said each of the main characters represent a small part of his youth. Though of the 5 guy characters, it's kind of speculated that the one most resembling him was Billy, played by Tim Daly.
Oh, sure, the best-looking one. There's a surprise.
Yeah. While not part of the boys' club, Ellen Barkin got along really well with the actors. Steve Guttenberg later noted how she was, quote, really cool to talk to and would set him straight about his own problems with women.
Well, I'm glad somebody did.
Yeah, I assume his major problem with women was he was Steve Guttenberg. Paul Reiser was not planning to audition. He came with a friend, another comedian who was auditioning, and while in the waiting room, someone persuaded him to go and audition. Michael Tucker, who plays Bagel again in another Barry Levinson movie called Tin Men. Never seen that.
I think the actor himself is sort of the Alan Tudyk for Barry Levinson. I think he shows up in all of his films.
Yeah, we'll talk about Michael Tucker later. For all you science nerd out there, the answer to one of the College Bowl questions was that the planet Mercury rotates once for every revolution of the sun, which is what astronomers believed in 1959. In 1965, radar observations showed that the planet actually rotates 3 times for every 2 revolutions of the sun.
Ah.
Now you know.
G.I. Joe.
Barry Levinson auditioned over 600 actors in a casting call for the 5 leads. The auditions were held in New York, Los Angeles, and Maryland. Also, about 30 to 40 actors and actresses were auditioned for the remaining smaller parts. He was thorough. This film actually inspired a 1983 CBS TV pilot called Diner, also written by Barry Levinson. Mike Binder replaced Steve Guttenberg. Paul Reiser came back as Modell.
Oh, Modell.
Max Cantor replaced Daniel Stern as Shrevey. Michael Madsen replaced Mickey Rourke as Boogie.
That's
and
actually
James
good
Spader
casting.
replaced Kevin Bacon as Fenwick. The TV pilot focused on the complaints of the wives, Elise and Beth, that their husbands were spending too much time hanging at the diner with their friends. This was a pilot. The show was never made. Paul Reiser's character of Modell is never seen outside the diner except in the first and final scene, along with the football test scene. His character, unlike the other leads, has no arc. He's also not a groomsman in the wedding and is not included in the final shot with the other 5 leads.
Which is weird. I wonder why they did that.
It's strange. The name of the diner in the film was the fictitious Fells Point Diner. Its physical location was a hilltop at the junction of Rogers Avenue and Reisterstown Road in Baltimore. For the movie, an entire diner was moved from New Jersey to Baltimore to facilitate filming. But at the original diner that was used to model the diner in the film, many a local Baltimorean has sampled its ware, including many who have attempted to eat the entire left side of the menu, as Earl does in the movie.
I want to say that that's one of the reasons that diners were designed. I think they were designed as a prefab that you could just plunk down anywhere. So it wouldn't have been...
sounds right. They used to all look like train cars.
Yeah, they're just bigger than that. But yeah, I think that that's the idea. There's still some around. There's one in my hometown of Waltham. There's a Wilson's Diner. I think it's been there since the 40s, the 30s, but the actual diner is still there.
Yeah, there's a few around here. There's other stuff, but I think that covers a lot of it.
I'm interested to see, is your sum up for the plot going to be long and involved or honestly really short? But there's only one way to find out. So, Max, take it, would you?
It's 1959 in Baltimore. Really, what else is there to say? We follow 5 young men who have known each other since childhood and are now reluctantly having to leave childhood behind, more or less. We've got Eddie, Steve Guttenberg, a rabid football fan who is supposed to marry Elise, provided she can pass his torturous football trivia exam, just like Prince Charles and Lady Diana. We also have Boogie, Mickey Rourke, back when he had a face, a compulsive gambler / ladies man / operator who's into a loan shark for $2,000 and has come up with a pretty sleazy way to make the money. Then there's Shrevey, Daniel Stern, the only currently married man in the group. He's more obsessed with his vinyl collection, the weirdo, than he is with his wife. And considering his wife, Beth, is played by Ellen Barkin, I have to conclude that there is something seriously wrong with Shrevey. Then there's Fenwick, played by all 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon, an aimless alcoholic living on a piddling trust fund with no direction in life. We've also got Modell, Paul Reiser, who is there to make funny observations and not change even a little. Finally, there's Billy, the one who got out and is working on his MBA. Always so sad when that happens to someone you know. He's in love with a longtime platonic friend whom he has impregnated after one ill-advised night together. Apparently. This passionate romance gets about 10 minutes of screen time.
Yeah.
So, what actually happens in the story? For the most part, it's these 5 guys farting around in their favorite diner hangout and acting pretty much like they're still kids as they prepare for the upcoming wedding and boogie schemes to avoid getting punched out by one of the least menacing thugs ever. Hey!
It's not the Fonz.
It's the same era.
Oh, is that it?
Yep.
The film.
So, Max, now you saw this in the day, right?
I did, but not in the theater. I saw it on videotape a few years later.
Really?
Yeah, I hadn't heard of it in the theater. As suggested, it didn't get a lot of play initially.
It's interesting because, I mean, it did what's currently considered successful business. It did nearly three times its budget.
Yeah.
Well, one of our friends was a big fan of this film. Our friend Dan loved this film.
He did. And for years after, whenever he wanted to ride someplace, he would just look at someone and go, "You going straight home?" Just like Paul Reiser.
Yeah. Always, yeah. But it's like, I can totally see why he would like the film, especially at that time period. I also want to say that it showed up at our favorite repertoire movie house, the Harvard Square Theater, a lot too. So
I think it did.
That's why I'm surprised you didn't see it in the theater. So you saw it on videotape. And
I think so.
You liked the film.
I did. I liked it a lot. I found it very quotable. I thought it was really funny.
Well, before we get to the cast, let's face it. This is a writer's film. This is very much a writer. Not that it's not an actor's film too, but the writing in this film, I think, takes center stage. Even though there's a lot of improv, the writing, I think, is the strongest point. But that's not to say that the actors don't do a good job too. In fact, let's get to them.
That makes sense. I mean, Barry Levinson is, first and foremost, well, he's a big director. He's also a writer, and he wrote the movie.
Well, you know who else he wrote for? Mel Brooks and the Carol Burnett Show.
Yeah, Mel Brooks apparently encouraged him to write this movie.
Yeah.
He told Brooks about this idea he had, and Brooks was like, "Kid, you should do it."
I mean, that's a pretty huge endorsement.
Yeah.
I mean, if Mel Brooks to this day told me to do something, I'd do it.
I would do it. Yep.
Yeah. If he did tell me to stop doing the show, then I wouldn't do that. But anyway. So we'll start off with Steve Guttenberg.
Yep. So, Mickey Rourke.
Let me guess. This is a wild guess. You don't like Steve Guttenberg any more than I do.
I don't actively dislike him. He's just this kind of cinematic null. He's been in a ton of fairly serious, well, not serious, but he's in a bunch of big movies. He was in a whole bunch of the Police Academy movies.
Okay.
He was in Cocoon. He was in, what is it? The one with number 5 is Alive.
Oh, Short Circuit.
Yeah, that's it. He was in the 80s. 3 Men and a Baby. In the 80s, he was everywhere.
Yeah.
And I don't dislike him. It's just, he just doesn't register with me. It's always, whenever I see a movie and he's in it, it's like, oh yeah, he was in it. I've seen this movie 4 times and I keep forgetting he's in it.
Well, let me ask you maybe a qualifying question. Does Steve Guttenberg make you want to punch him?
Yes, he has a very punchable face. Not his fault. He just does.
No, I think part of it is his fault. And I'm going to go out. I'm going to take this further than you did. I think they cast Eddie perfectly. I think he brings that Gutenbergian quality that makes you believe that this kind of schmuck is a real person.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So,
that's the thing. He's totally believable. Although I don't get the whole thing with the football quiz. How is it everyone acts like this is a normal, sane thing to do? How are Elise's parents not begging their little girl to have nothing to do with this lunatic?
Because it's the 50s.
I guess so.
Yeah.
We never see Elise's face, We hear her voice off screen once.
We do see her. It's one point she's leaving a building and it is her, but it's like she doesn't get to say anything and she's not close up.
Oh, I thought that was Beth. Okay.
No, it was dark haired. She has dark hair. So I had no problem sadly believing that, but that's fine. Again, I think Steve Guttenberg is perfect for this role.
Yeah.
Mickey Rourke is...
You want to punch Eddie, too.
Oh, definitely. Mickey Rourke is utterly unrecognizable. I sat there staring and was like, who is that? Who is that?
This was back before Mickey Rourke said, yeah, I could be a boxer.
Or, hey, would you smack me in the face a few hundred times?
Yeah, pretty much. He was a heartthrob in the 80s. And when he first started out, he was going to be this big sex symbol.
I got to say, of the guys, he's the one I found the tiniest bit off.
Really? How do you mean?
Well, I couldn't quite figure out his angle. Like, I couldn't figure out Boogie. And we don't get any other name. If they do say it, it's Robert, I think. Bob?
Yeah. He introduces himself at the end to with the Jane Chisholm.
But he's like... It's like there's this smoldering intensity about his character that doesn't go anywhere. Like, I don't know what his angle is. And I think I think he's trying very hard. And I know that Mickey Rourke doesn't like comedy. He actually did not enjoy making this film because he's like, I'm a dramatic actor. And I want to say, I think he was in a movie called, oh no, it wasn't Wild at Heart. What was the one where De Niro plays the devil?
Something Heart. Yeah. Angel Heart.
Angel Heart, that's right. He did really well in it. Actually, watching Robert De Niro play the devil is awesome. It's a really cool film.
Yeah, except for the fact that the devil's name is Louis Cypher.
I mean, I've seen worse.
Hey, come on.
Dr. Acula. I get it. I don't like it.
I just don't like it, yeah.
So I don't think he does a bad job at all. I just thought of the characters, his was the slightest bit off center.
That I was quite get my thing. I didn't think he was off. I thought it was, oh wow, he's got all this energy. He must secretly want to be I didn't get anything.
No, I don't know. I don't know what he wants to do or what he wants to be. The rest of the characters, I think I kind of understand, but not a bad performance. Just the others I thought did better. And saying that Steve Guttenberg did better than Mickey Rourke hurts, but I'm going to say it.
Sad, but
yeah.
Kevin Bacon.
Perfect.
I think he nails Fenwick.
I think he might actually be the most interesting character in the film because of one scene, and that is the scene where he's watching College Bowl.
No? Oh, it's College Bowl where he gets every question right.
Yeah, and it's like, wow, this character is way smarter than everybody knows. Nobody has any idea, and he's not doing anything with it. Why? So even though I don't know what he wants, he at least gives me something to think about. And I thought that was really interesting. And it's Kevin Bacon. Kevin Bacon is a very solid actor. I want to say that a lot of his performances aren't outstanding, but they're always solid. And this one I thought was intriguing.
You can always count on what he'll do.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, I think he does a fine job. Although the character is a little disturbing. At one point, his girlfriend says, I'm kind of scared of Fenwick.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I get that.
Yeah.
He's kind of disturbing.
I think I only know Daniel Stern from Breaking Away, in which he was perfect.
And City Slickers.
Oh, that's right. That's right. I forgot about that with Bruno Kirby. I think this is one of his...
voice on The Wonder Years.
Was he?
Yep. He was Kevin's voice.
I think this may be one of his best performances. I think he does a really good job as Shrevey, especially when we get to see him realize when he's talking to Eddie about getting married, and he's basically trying not to admit, I didn't know what I was doing, I still don't know what I'm doing, and I don't know that this was a good idea. But he doesn't say that. He's like, no, it's fine. It's good.
He has some of the saddest lines. Somebody says, like, what about when you and Beth make out? He just looks at him and goes, we're married. We don't make out.
Yeah. Yeah. And he talks about sex. It's like, oh, when you're dating, it's all about the talk is all about sex and like where to have it and why aren't we having it? When can we have it next? And he's like, I have nothing to talk about with her. I can't hold a conversation for 5 minutes. And of course, we're sitting there going, it's Ellen Barkin.
What is wrong with you? Find something to talk about.
Yeah.
How about just spend the evening telling her how beautiful she is? She's Louise.
Well, or helping her find. This is one of the sad things I did find out is that Ellen Barkin said of all the characters she ever played, Beth was the one that was most like her. Yeah. Where she's like, sad. I don't know who I am and I don't know anymore and stuff. And it's like, yeah. But she said she had a real connection with that character. But I think Daniel Stern does a great job. Even though he's often known as a comedic actor, he later on would do a lot of stumbling and bumbling, and that's not what he's doing here.
Oh, sure. I mean, Home Alone.
Yeah. Well, Home Alone and City Slickers to some extent. But
Yeah.
Tim Daly, I don't know him from anything else, but I guess he had a pretty varied career.
He did. Mainly, I know him from an old sitcom called Wings that he did with Thomas Hayden Church and a couple other people who went on. The guy who went on to do Monk was on that show, Tony Shalhoub.
Okay.
He's done a lot of minor stuff, but he has done a lot.
So,
and he's actually pretty good as Billy. Although, again, this is a character. You say Rourke is one you don't get, or Boogie is one you don't really get. I don't get Billy.
Well, I mean, a lot of the actors think that if any of them represented Levinson, it's him. The thing that I kept getting, and it was something that Daly was doing, and I don't think he was doing it consciously, and I don't think it meant anything, but when he's hanging out with Eddie, he keeps looking at Eddie. And there is this emotion behind his glance, and part of me is like, oh, is he gay?
I was wondering about that, because you notice they're the only ones who show any physical affection.
And it's like it's a 59, so nobody's gay, right? Because we haven't invented that yet.
Right, they hadn't invented it yet. But I have that in my notes. I thought that Billy and Eddie had the most chemistry.
You really bought them being best friends, and I think they're also two of the two characters that don't end up really in any way fighting, quote unquote. They're pretty arm in arm, and you get the impression that Billy is traditional, and he wants to marry Barbara for good reasons, and he wants to raise the kid, but I never felt his heart was fully in it, which is, I think, why she eventually says no. But,
although it's implied at the end, when they're dancing at the wedding, that maybe, but that honestly didn't make that much sense to me.
Yeah.
I think she has one of the most insightful lines, I think, in the whole movie. She says, "You're confusing friendship with a woman for love."
Yeah.
It's like, wow. And, that sums up a lot of people.
I also think that I know the movie is not trying to do this, but if it was the fact that the character was exceedingly closeted, it would actually make him a lot more interesting and a lot more understandable. But, and I got to say too, we're skipping a little ahead, but Barbara was one of my favorite characters because she knew what she wanted. She stood up for it, and she's working in television in the 50s. That was amazing.
Yeah, you can see she's the only woman in the building.
Right. And the fact that she's in television and she's in early, good for her.
Yeah, she's not making people coffee or anything. She's doing stuff.
Yeah, that was one of the only positive female role models in the entire film. But we're skipping over one of the more... we're skipping Ellen Barkin, who I thought was also excellent as... not a thankless
she was
part.
Terrific.
I just feel bad for Beth because it's obvious she's not happy, and you're not allowed to not be happy in the 50s as a housewife.
Yeah, but she's so good at both the vulnerability and the kind of... She starts out sounding like a nag.
Yeah. Well,
she always wants to, but you also understand that she doesn't get all the in-jokes that the boys are all making. She wants to be part of it. She wants to be included. She doesn't like the fact that, her husband has his whole life that has nothing to do with her and that he won't even consider letting her into.
Yeah. Well, two parts of his life, right? Because we get to the record scene and it's like, oh, it's Rob from High Fidelity. Okay. Although worse, much worse.
Much worse. I mean, he knows the colors of all the labels of the B-sides and the A-sides of every record he has ever owned.
Although I have to say, the way he handles 45s is horrible. You do not hold them together without their sleeves on. No, no, no.
Yeah, I wonder why this character resonated with you, Mike. You know,
I'm not that bad.
That's a mystery.
No. Yeah, no, I'm not that bad with my records. I do have them filed so that I can find them, but it's literally because if I put them A to Z, I couldn't find things anymore. Yeah. I was like, I'm in a mood for this. I'm going to put them in more or less style because I have moods. And that is because of Rob in High Fidelity, I'll admit that. So yeah, Ellen Barkin, I think she does a great job. But then we get to somebody who's I'm not even supposed to be here today. It's Paul Reiser. And I got to say, this is kind of Paul Reiser at his peak. He was really good in Mad About You too, and I really liked him in that.
He was good in that. He was good in Aliens.
Yeah, and I swear, but a totally different Paul Reiser in Aliens. And then again in Stranger Things, which is kind of the same Paul Reiser from Aliens. And as soon as he popped up in Stranger Things, I'm like, oh, don't trust him. No, don't trust him.
Bad guy.
I honestly think Barry Levinson found Paul Reiser, saw what he was and what he did, and just said, I don't have you you're not in the script. I'm just going to put you in the movie. Here you go. just do you. And he does. I wouldn't
be surprised.
And of course, Paul Reiser has one of the most memorable scenes in the film, which is oh, you're going to finish that scene? And
that whole exchange, yeah.
I will say that I'm really sorry that we don't know anything about Modell. He is only there for comedy, and he's good at it. He has
no story arc. No. He doesn't change at all. We don't see, does he have a girlfriend? Is he gay? We don't know anything about him. Nothing.
Does he leave the diner? Does he own the diner? I don't know.
Does he only exist within the confines of the diner and maybe has to absorb someone's soul so he can occasionally leave? We don't know.
Hey, Doctor Who, rein it in. But he is very funny.
He's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
He is the funniest in this. I mean, he gets the best. I still like when he's complaining about the theory of evolution.
Yeah.
People don't come from a swamp. They come from Europe.
Well, he's
I don't know why that line killed me every time.
Well, and then it's because it's Paul Reiser, and he was a stand-up comic, and he was good. I never saw his stand. Did you ever see his stand-up?
I did. He's funny as hell.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. Really is.
He's the guy who does the, it's morning, we're frying, we're baking, we're...
That's Richard Jeni.
You think that's Richard Jeni? Okay,
it is Richard Jeni.
Okay.
Whom I adore too and has sadly passed, but yeah. Catherine Dowling, who doesn't even have a photo on IMDb, she plays Barbara. It's a tiny part, which is sad, but I like what she represents at least.
Mm-hmm. She doesn't have a lot to do, but she's also she's a character like Billy I wanted to know more about.
Yeah. And then lastly, the last person really worth talking about is probably Michael Tucker. Mm-hmm. Bagel.
Michael Tucker, who has looked like someone's dad since birth. That's what he tends to play, is people's dads. And I think he's been playing people's dads since he was 15.
Yeah, well, and he's good at it, although I don't necessarily buy him as... he's supposed to be some sort of Baltimore mob boss, I guess.
Well, he's in Home Improvement, he says.
Well, yeah, but you get the impression that there's more to it than
he may be connected. It's not entirely clear. Obviously, when it turns out that Boogie's in trouble with a loan shark, he's the one who says, "You want me to take care of it?"
When Boogie's in trouble, I am not slow. It's hip, 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 and away I go.
Yep.
Yeah, he's fine. He's a little part that honestly cuts off some tension that we've all been waiting for throughout the film, and I did not mind.
He's a bit of a Deus Ex Hebrew, but
with a name like Tucker.
Yeah.
Well, Barkin. So there you go. So yeah, a pretty solid cast all around, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
I had a couple of questions though, and I had to look one of them up because it's like, this was not a thing, was it? Gravy on fries in the 50s?
Oh yeah, it's a big deal.
Not in the 50s. I did look this up. It was called disco fries, but it was very popular in certain areas of the East Coast starting in the 70s. And of course, if you add cheese curds, they have poutine. But I had never seen in America gravy. Apparently, it's now fairly common. You can find it, but and I don't have any. I did try poutine once. It was okay. The big problem I had with the cheese curds is they don't really have any flavor. It's sort of like the chunky parts from cottage cheese. It's kind of like that.
Yeah, that's why you pretty much have to, that's why they usually deep fry them or something.
Well, they put them under the broiler to get them to try and melt, but, I don't care what you put on your fries. It doesn't matter to me. It's not something I would choose. Although, if it's a good beef gravy, I get it, right? Because potatoes and beef and stuff, it's like sort of, it's like a backwards beef stew. It's like, more potatoes than juices, but whatever. But yeah, I had to look at a disco fries, whatever. I also had to look up color TV because we're in 1959.
Oh, yeah.
It is a little early for it, but it was out there.
They existed. It's just, God knows what they cost.
Well, and there was only one network that regularly showed TV shows in color in 1959.
NBC.
It was, in fact, NBC.
The Peacock.
Which was, in fact, the network that had Bonanza. So...
And in living color.
Yeah, because what eventually would happen is that when the 60s rolled around, NBC wanted to be the all-color network, and one of the shows that made it that way was Star Trek. So, and Mission Impossible.
Hello, I'm Peter Graves, and I'm in color.
Yeah. So, I was like, really? But it was there. So, that's fine.
Okay. I just want to go back to Paul Reiser. He has some great lines. I still like the open of his big openings, and it just sets the tone for the character. You know what word I'm not comfortable with? Nuance. He just doesn't like the word.
And I'm going to bet that was a total improv by Paul Reiser.
I wouldn't be a lot of it was. I think a lot of the diner dialogue was improvised. I think a lot of the whole, "You going to finish that?" was improvised, because you watch Gutenberg just losing it while he's trying to do the lines.
But Daniel Stern picks up the slack really well.
He does. He's like, "Here, I'll take it." And you realize this is a thing they've been doing for God knows how long, because Eddie lets him take it. He does. And you notice Modell only does this to Eddie.
Yeah.
He doesn't do it to any of the others. So he knows it gets under Eddie's skin. It's like their shtick.
Yeah.
That's one of the things I like. You believe these people have known each other for a long time.
Oh, yeah. And when I said it was a writer's film, I wasn't all trying to implicate that it was, or impart that it was in any way so overwritten and rich in dialogue that it didn't feel realistic. In fact, I thought that the conversation was as natural as you're going to get for those kind of characters.
Yeah.
There was a little documentary that they did in 2000 that I did watch about this, and pretty much every actor said the same thing. It's like, oh yeah, the best at improv was Paul Reiser. We couldn't touch him.
Yeah.
And Kevin Bacon was, and you can see it too in that scene. Kevin Bacon was like, I just sat back and laughed because like I had nothing. I brought nothing to the table, and that worked out.
Worked. It worked for Fenwick, because you get Fenwick is this one who's very quiet until he does something insane.
Yeah.
Like attacking a nativity scene and getting so upset because baby Jeebus has been stolen that he strips down to his underwear and gets into the creche.
Yeah. I also got to say, I think that Kevin Bacon sold himself a little short, because in that scene, when he finally knocks everything over, there's this one little bit where he's knocked over his friends too, and he just turns to, I guess it's Joseph or one of the wise men, and he just sort of gestures like, you see what I have to deal with? Like, I bet that was not in the script, but it was funny.
No, I'm sure it wasn't. It's a great little moment. Because that's and the comic timing he shows there is just really good.
Yeah. There's some scenes that we get to that turns out mirrored real life, as you mentioned, and that was the strip club scenes.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know about you, but man, I was cringing all through that. It just felt too real. Like, the people performing aren't really at the peak of their game. That was probably about 10 years ago.
The women look so bored.
Yeah. And even
but I like the moment where Billy jumps up and takes over the piano, because I had forgotten that scene, because it'd been 100 years since I've seen the movie, and I'm like, oh God, they're going to beat him up or he's going to get thrown out.
Yeah.
No, it turns out he's really good, and the combo of the drummer and the saxophonist get into it, and then Eddie gets up and surprisingly dances, at least very energetically.
Yeah, not at all. Not entirely unlike we saw, what's his name do last week in Quadrophenia.
Kind of like whatever his name was.
Yeah, I don't know why. It's literally last week, but oh well.
Yeah.
I think too that there's a sense that he's doing this only because he's had a nip of the grape, as it were. But I got to say, the Billy being able to play the piano and being able to play in that style so well, I thought was a bit much. I don't know if I bought it or not, because there's literally nothing to suggest he was musical before that. But
I was hoping that would turn out like, oh, he doesn't want to go to business school. He actually wants to be a musician.
I think he wants to be fabulous. No.
Yeah. Could be.
But
I mean, I like that scene. I think it's adorable. It is
fun.
Cringy at first because it's it's like, I've been to one strip club.
Yeah.
And it was honestly, the women actually were very attractive at this one. Mm-hmm. But it was so depressing because then I looked at my fellow patrons. And Larry Miller, the comic, has the best description of men at a strip club. He says, women at a strip club, for women, they're all laughing and cheering and making noise. It's a party. Men at a strip club, you ever see one of those nature documentaries of lions watching a pack of elk? That's what it looks like, and it's creepy as hell.
It's the sounds of hunger. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it was, the thing is that scene also felt a little out of place. Like the humor in that scene was very different than the style of humor.
It felt like from a different movie. It was still good, but it didn't really fit.
It was fine up until the point that he goes and starts playing the piano, because of course that's where we see Billy and Eddie really, I think that's where Billy lets his guard down even a little, because otherwise he's pretty stiff. Even when he first comes off the train and he sees his friends, he not only seems surprised, but he seems a little bit thrown. Like, oh, hey, you guys are here. Hey, that's
like,
great.
I wasn't ready for it. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. Of course, we find out later that he's found out. Had he found out ahead of time that she was pregnant?
No, I don't think so. I think she tells him in the church.
Yeah, I guess so. No. She tells him at the TV station. Barbara.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I thought it was at the church. All right.
No. So, because I don't think we ever see Barbara except at the TV station. Yeah.
No. He meets her at church.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
They have a long conversation there.
No, I think that was after
That's where he asks her to marry him.
Yeah, I think he tells her in the TV station, but then they go, and she's like, I can't talk about this here, and so he meets her in the church. That's right.
What about Boogie? What about what he does? The fact that he keeps trying to use women to win bets. Carol Hardwick, who he's trying, makes a bet that she'll put her hands on his little Boogie, and he does this by using the old pop, your Johnson in the popcorn box trick.
Is that an old trick? I really hope it isn't.
It is.
Oh God!
Okay. Well, people talk about it as if it is. I don't know if anyone. It would require a certain amount of force to do that, but
well, he does impart that as the accident that caused him to. And that poor woman is obviously just portrayed as being dim as a doornail. But
you got to give it to him, though. He is very convincing. It's like you could sell ice to an Inuit, couldn't you?
Yeah, the problem I have is that I kind of don't want him to succeed. I kind of don't want him to get the money, because every way he tries to do it is kind of horrible. And then later in the film,
he's going to have sex with his friend's wife. He's going to sleep with Beth, who is really, when she and Shrivi are fighting, he's going to take her out and have sex with her. And she knows this. He wants her to wear a blonde wig so she'll look like Carol.
Yeah.
So he can win a bet that he'll make, because he's going to make money if he sleeps with Carol.
Right.
But he does have a moment of conscience and can't go through with it. He's supposed to be redeemed at the end, because he not only doesn't go through with it, he confesses the whole thing to her.
What do you think the reason was he finally decided not to go through with it was?
I don't know, because we aren't really shown that part of him. The only thing is, we do see, even when he's setting it up, and this is, again, a tribute to Mickey Rourke's acting, just with his facial expressions, you can see he's conflicted. It's like, he's trying to save himself, because this is not just, I'm out $2,000. This is, I may get killed. There is, a mobster is going to very likely beat me to death if I don't get the money. He's desperate. But even in his desperation, he's like, this is not... And the interesting thing I thought is it has nothing to do with Shrivi. He never says anything like, I can't betray my friend, I'm breaking the guy code. Beth puts it best. Thank you for respecting me enough not to go through with it. And I think that's true. I think ultimately he can't do that to her.
Why? I couldn't figure
Because
out why he
he
chose
liked
not
her.
to. Well, and
I
he
think,
might
you know,
have,
they-
and they might have made a better match, except he's so deplorable. She deserves better.
I don't know.
And she isn't going to get it.
It's one of the problems when you have 5 main characters. It's hard to tell. We don't get a lot of his inner motivation. We don't really know what his home life is like. We don't know what has made him this way.
And also, I'd say of the characters, he's the one who's most on the outside. Like, he doesn't seem to hang specifically with anybody. So
he has more of a network of people than they do.
He seems almost more like he's on the edge of being a loner. Like, he's got friends, but it's sort of like by momentum. It doesn't seem like he does anything to keep them close, especially when he's even considering sleeping with one of his friend's wives. So, like, and then later on, he decides he's going to put the moves on this woman who he's seen riding a horse. So suddenly he can ride a horse, which makes total sense.
Oh, yeah. Everyone in Baltimore can.
Yeah, whatever. So I don't know. I don't understand the character that well.
What was B? You said that was A. Why does he not do it?
Well, why does he not do it? And then B, why does he even consider sleeping with the wife of one of his friends? Like, seriously?
No, that I bought. I think that's desperation. And also, I think Boogie is, if I had to speculate, and that's really all we can do, I think he's a classic narcissist. He sees other people as resources, not as people, most of the time.
Which makes me wonder how people are still friends with him. Like,
because, like a lot of narcissists, he's very charming.
Is he?
And
to women, yes.
He is.
To his friends?
He's charismatic. He's funny. And you get the feeling he's the guy who comes up with the ideas for things to do. He just strikes me as that member of the group. He's very much, I know it's an outdated term, but he always seems like the alpha to me. These other guys aren't as strong personalities. I could see him bossing them around a lot.
I disagree. I think Eddie is really the only person Eddie has problems with is Modell, and we never find out why. But Eddie seems to be the one that people sort of like, because I think a couple of the guys are like, really, you're not going to marry her if she doesn't pass the stupid football test, but they all go along with it. I could and I kind of wish there had been some sort of tension between Boogie and Eddie, because I think there probably would have been in that group. But it's not part of the thing, and maybe that's not how Barry Levinson's friends were like, so I don't know. But what I do know is we got to that point, it says the clock on the wall, where we have to decide, do we like Diner?
The finish.
So Max, you saw it in the 80s.
I did.
You saw it in the 80s at some point, and you really liked it. You've not seen it since?
I did. I have not.
Oh.
I haven't seen it in like 40 years.
That surprises me, because usually if you like a film, you will go back and rewatch it.
Yeah.
So you had to watch it for us, because I made you.
You did.
So what do you think now?
I still think it's fun. I think it's a lot more problematic. Some of these guys' behavior is really disturbing, and it's not addressed at all. I mean, I'm sorry. Fenwick is a friggin' alcoholic and a danger to himself and others. Boogie, like I say, is a narcissist. Eddie is, I don't know what's wrong with Eddie, that he would actually refuse to marry a woman who didn't have a mastery of football trivia? Really? Billy's an enigma to me. Shrevey is an obsessive-compulsive nerd. In a lot of ways, they're not nice people. But the relationship between them, which is really what the movie is about, is really something to watch. It's believable, it's warm, and it's funny. The movie is very funny. The writing is so good, and the performances they make the characters both likable and unlikable at the same time. Yeah, I'm still impressed by this movie.
So would you recommend it?
I would recommend it, yes. Just keep in mind it's a product both of its time and the time period it takes place in. What about you? You had never seen this, hence the I can't believe you've never seen this.
No, but I have.
What did you think?
I have, in fact, I have seen our friend Dan do the Are You Going to Finish That many times.
Yep. And of course, the Are You Going Straight Home? Yeah.
I have heard, I did know it was from this movie, just never got around to seeing it. Don't like it.
No? Okay.
I think it is well made. I think the acting is very good. I think the portrayals of male friendship are very right there. They're really focused, and that's very true. I just don't like what this movie's saying. And I get the impression that none of these guys is ever going to learn anything.
Yeah, there is
They're
that.
all going to treat women poorly. They're never going to understand them as equals or people. I find their...
Well, it's 1959. What do you think?
Well, here's the thing. When I watched the documentary, all of them seemed exactly the same. And that was filmed in 2000. And I made my mind up. I wrote my notes before I saw the documentary. But I think this is a love letter to guys and guy things. And, the quote-unquote sadness of having to say goodbye to male freedom because of marriage or having to, grow up at some point. Or even a slight comment on the changing times where, women would finally decide in the 60s that they didn't want to do this anymore. They wanted something more and deserved it. But I think we're supposed to come away feeling like these are great people and that we wish we were like them. And I'm like, I don't
agree with that at all.
I do.
I don't think they're supposed to be admirable at all. Eddie's obsession, what he does to Elise with the quiz, is presented as flat out insane. And the humor is that everyone goes along with it, that no one actually calls it out as insane. And it is crazy, and I think it's also a thing about how difficult the idea of marriage is versus the reality. I mean, it's kind of so pathetic the way they talk about it. Was it one of them say, "I keep thinking I'm going to be missing out on things," and Shrevey says, "Well, that's what marriage is all about."
The reason that I disagree with you is that I don't get any sense from the film that it is apologizing for anything. I think it is aggrandizing, glorifying, and spotlighting this guy behavior that we're all supposed to accept. There's nothing in the film that says, yeah, we know we were terrible, but eventually we got over it. You, in fact, get the impression that these people were terrible and never changed or never will change. And again, I think it's very well made. It's very well written. I don't know if I've seen 5 people feel more like real friends. And Barry Levinson actually got them together early and shoved them together and said, go hang out. Just do that. We're not going to rehearse. We're going to hang out. You guys are going to hang out. And they went and did, as you might expect, deplorable things. Got drunk a lot, except for apparently poor Daniel Stern, who was married at the time. And when he heard the stories, he was basically like, yeah, I think I missed a lot of this stuff. I don't think they included me because I was married. So I don't like the film because I think it's still trying to portray this as okay. But I think it's well made. And I think it sets out to do what it does and does it very well. So it's a weird mix for me where I think the film is a good product of its makers, but I can't endorse it because I don't like the way it portrays this toxic male thing that's been perpetuated on and on and on. So take that for what you will. Take it as a 50-50.
Okay.
So,
yeah, I mean, I still think that it's just presenting it as this is the way it was, and it's not glorifying it. It is highlighting it. That's fine. We agree to disagree.
Yeah, I guess we'll have to, except Max is wrong.
But what we can agree on is our next poll question.
We can.
What do you think is the most overused specific location in movies? Coffee shop, front seat of a car, public restroom,
bottom of a lake in France.
Yep.
The Lambda Zone.
If I have to see one more of those.
Haunted house films at the bottom of a lake in France. Oh my God, there's 5,000 of those. Whew.
And you can answer this in a number of ways. You can email us directly at us@maxmikemovies.com. You can go to our website, maxmikemovies.com, and leave a comment. You can find us on the Vox Facts.
That's
under
Facebook.
Max Mike Movie Facebook under Max Mike Movies.
He said it again. I win.
You can also find us on Mastodon, also and Max Mike Movies. You can also find us on Blue Sky.
That was the Mastodon.
Blue Skies, hey, Irving Berlin.
Huh? Oh.
Or the social media thing. I don't know.
Or Mr. Blue
And
Sky.
you can find us on the podcast app of your choicington.
And
but we are
our hotline. You always forget the hotline.
Course, I know, I forgot.
Because he doesn't know the number. He's looking it up. That's 617-398-7266.
I have it right here in my notes.
I have it in my head.
617-398-7266.
They can't see you going looking for it.
Okay, giggles. What are we watching next week as we continue this? I can't believe you haven't seen this. Which movie that I haven't seen are you going to talk about and make me watch?
Well, this is a film that's about 3 central characters. And what amazes me, I can't believe you haven't seen this, because this is like one of the biggest films of its type of its era. And it has such amazing big stars in it that I can't believe you haven't seen the film that is about these 3 characters. And I think at least the first one's a philosopher. I'm not sure because I haven't seen this in a long time, but his name is Locke. And I think Locke was a famous philosopher.
John Locke.
John Locke, there we go. And then he has a friend with a similar name whose name is
Rousseau?
Stock. And then I can't tell if this is a single character because sometimes nicknames are weird and it could be one guy or 2 guys. Maybe they're twins. And
you can all see where this is going, can't you?
2 smoking barrels. So yes.
Yeah, okay, Dennis Ritchie. All right.
No, Guy Ritchie, but that's okay.
Well, how about Dennis Ritchie? I like him better.
There is no Dennis Ritchie. You made that up. Just like the phone number you forgot. But what Max hasn't forgotten is that we're going to have a show next week. And we're going to watch Lock, Stock, and 2 Smoking Barrels of Fish.
Done by Lionel Richie.
This has been a co-production of The Voice of Max and The Movie Wrench.